Okay, people, what's up? So we made it through, just barely. Diamond Coin Dream is still alive. If you watched the last pick'ems, like last minute, literally like half an hour before the first round of games started, I swapped VP out in my pick'ems for Furia, which ended up saving me. We just barely got five. Um, yeah, pretty crazy to see FlyQuest do as well as they did. Obviously, they didn't qualify, but really good games. That game versus Liquid was super fun watch. Rare Adam and Fnatic just fucking up everybody's pick'ems. And yeah, feel a little stupid because honestly, when I very first did my pick'ems, I actually had Rare Adam Imperial as the 0-3, and then I swapped out for FlyQuest after watching some videos. And yeah, not gonna make that mistake again. I'm going with my gut. I'm not going off other people's stuff. And also, just super wild to see Complexity not go through. Pretty rough. And yeah, also big shout out to Wildcard for making it through. Like, very exciting to see, like an actual North American org that's not Complexity or Liquid do so well at a big event like this. So yeah, we'll go to elimination stage right now. Okay, so I just pulled all my picks out because I already had them set. But yeah, we'll go ahead and start with, I guess, the 0-3, because honestly I feel like that's probably the easiest for this stage. I'm going with Big and MIBR. I think Wildcard, Furia, Gamer Legion are also valid picks to put here. I just think with the way the bracket is most likely going to go, or like, with the potential like most likely upsets in the first round, I just think there's a lot of instances where MIBR and Big end up down here. MIBR I don't think looked that great. Obviously, it's cool to see another Brazilian org make it through. But yeah, I just don't think they looked that solid overall throughout the first stage. Same with Big, like losing a best of 3 to Furia. It's pretty brutal because I think Furia is also not great, and you could even put them down here. I will say that most likely, like, there's a lot of ways the bracket go where both of these teams like are not going to be playing each other. So if they both end up in this 0-2 matchup and then they both win their games there, you will end up with no 0-3 picks correct. So potentially a safer bet is doing like two teams that you think will play each other, like Wildcard Big down here. But yeah, I just have a little faith in Wildcard. I don't think they're going to go 0-3. I think a lot of people have sort of been talking about like, I guess just like, I think a lot of people don't necessarily believe in Stanislaus and IGL and just think that like these teams with better prep are going to be able to, kind of read Wildcard. And I don't really buy into that because if you watched their games, they were really good at like playing differently in each matchup. Like in the Virtus Pro game on Inferno, they were playing this really fast, aggressive, like style of CS on the T side, and then you look at their Inferno that they played versus Passion UA, which was a lot slower, a lot more methodical. I think Stanislaw was pretty much the best IGL in the opening stage, and I would say like him and whoever the IGL is for Mongols, I think it's Blitz. I would say they looked like the two best captains in the opening stage, and yeah, I think Stanislaw is a good enough IGL that they should be able to prepare pretty well here. So I just don't think that they're gonna, I can't see them not winning a map or like one of these 0-2 matchups against like a weaker team like an MIBR or Big or maybe like Pain or Gamer Legion down here. So yeah, I definitely believe in Wildcard. I guess let's go next for the 3-0 picks. So I'm definitely putting Navi. I think Navi's going to win the major. I think they are the strongest team here. Obviously, their RMR run wasn't perfect. They did lose that best of 3 to Mouse, but Mouse just gets a buff in Studio Lands, and apparently Wonderful was pretty sick during that. So hopefully he's had a few weeks to recover. We'll be feeling a little bit better. And yeah, I think Navi in that opening matchup versus Liquid, they should just smash Liquid. I don't think Liquid has really improved at all since that roster came together. Obviously, they have 5 players who can all just shoot pretty hard, with the exception of Yakinder, I guess, because he's been, in a pretty rough individual form for a while. But yeah, it doesn't look like their system is getting any better. I don't think Twist has really improved as an IGL. I think this is, he's a competent IGL for sure. I mean, they went 3-0 in the last stage, but I just think against some of these really experienced IGLs like the Alexi B's, Chopper, Apex, Kerrigan, like I don't see Liquid winning unless all their individuals just really pop off, which certainly could happen. But I think the chances of Liquid upsetting Navi in that opening match are a lot lower than a lot of people seem to think they are. And outside of that, I think Navi should have a pretty easy time in the 1-0 matchups. I think they're going to end up playing like potentially 3D Max or like Heroic there, something like that, which I think potentially Mongols, actually. I'm not entirely sure, but I think Navi should be able to easily make it up to this 2-0. And then they're going to be playing against probably like Vitality, Spirit, or Mouse up there, I think, depending on the way the bracket goes. So my other 3-0 pick is going to be Vitality. I've seen a lot of people put G2 up here. So just if like all the favorites do win, Navi, Vitality will end up playing each other in the 2-0 matchup. So you guarantee yourself one of these 3-0 picks just by picking that, assuming that like all the favorites are winning in these first 2 rounds. But I think the really big upset potential in the first round is Mongols versus G2. I think it's very likely that Mongols can beat G2 in a best of 1. I think that's like probably the most likely upset that can happen in this first round of games. And just purely off that, it feels a little unsafe to put G2 as a 3-0. Whereas I think Navi and Vitality should very easily be able to win their opening games, and then these 1-0 matchups, they should be able to pretty comfortably win them, just with the possibilities of the teams they could play. So yeah, I feel pretty confident about Navi Vitality here. I think by putting this, even if all the favorites win, you're guaranteeing yourself at least one of these as a 3-0. So yeah, I think these are pretty safe. I think the other picks that you could put up here are like a potentially a G2. Like I don't think G2 is impossible. Potentially a Spirit or a Mouse. But yeah, I feel pretty confident about Navi. I feel like they should be able to get 3-0 here. So with the rest of these, I think the pretty obvious picks are like G2 and Spirit. Just both very strong teams. G2's probably the second favorite to win the entire event. I just think there's a lot of upset potential for them in that very first matchup. But I think, even there's a good chance of them going 3-0, but I think most likely they'll go through 3-1. Or potentially 3-2, but probably 3-1. I think as long as Monacy picks his individual form up a little bit compared to where he was at for the RMR, they should be completely fine to get through. As far as Spirit goes, like Donk and Shiro have just looked absolutely crazy. I think they're a very safe bet to make it to the playoffs. Next team I'm going to be putting is the Mongols. They looked like far and away the best team in the opening stage. They just absolutely crushed everyone they played. They looked really good at the RMR as well. And they're just playing a really fundamentally solid and fluid style of CS. I would actually compare them a lot to Navi, where they don't have any they don't have a Monacy, they don't have a Nico, like this really big superstar player who's kind of like leading the whole team. They have a bunch of really skilled, solid players who just have a really good understanding of their system and what they need to do in the mid rounds, and their decision making is just really quick, really accurate, and I think they should easily go through here and go to the playoffs. I also think just this isn't a home crowd for them, but as the sole Asian representative left in the tournament, I think to some degree they should be crowd favorites. Obviously, if we go way back in history, Mongolia and China are maybe not the friendliest countries to each other, but I think just, as the Asian representative, they should have the crowd behind them, which is something that they've probably never really had before, especially at an event of this caliber. And I think specifically, Mazinho looks really comfortable on the stage for being such a young player. He's finally kind of being kind of their hype man a little bit. There's that clip of him dancing, which I think was like right after the pistol round in that first game against Rare Atom. I think the Mongols just look really, really solid here. I think these 3 teams are very, very safe locks to put through. And honestly, Spirit and G2, you could put 3-0 if you really wanted to. Next, we're going to be putting Mouse. They have looked solid recently. Obviously, beating Navi at the RMR is a great win, even though it is a studio environment where they typically play way better. I don't expect them to play necessarily as well since they will be in front of a crowd. They've definitely proved that they can play on stage. Like I think it was Rio where they beat Furia 2-0 on stage. With the crowd like completely against them. Obviously the Brazilian crowd is going to be way more cheering for Furia than Mouse, and I think Mouse was like actively getting booed pretty much that whole game. So they definitely have proved that they can play on stage, but also that's against Furia, who's like arguably an 0-3 pick here. And I would say Furia's arguably 0-3, even though I would say they've been playing better at this event than they were playing at Rio or like any recent events. So yeah, I think Mal's should go through. They should go to the playoffs. But I definitely would not be considering them as like a 3-0 pick. But again, they have looked very solid. You know, the Rio final, they did look good. I just don't think they're necessarily favorites to like win the event or anything. But yeah, very solid team. Shui's great. Yeah. As far as these last two slots, I think there's a lot of viable options here. Like I think FaZe, Heroic, 3D Max, Liquid, and Pain are all like valid picks to put here. Potentially even Wildcard. I am going to be going with FaZe just because, you know, they've been such a consistent team for so long. It would be crazy to see them not make playoffs here. Actually, not that crazy. Like, I don't know. I do think that roster has been worse since Twist left and they had to pick up Frozen. Twist just was a more supportive element for that roster, and I think, you know, Rops and Brokey have just been struggling a little bit more with Frozen on the team just because Frozen needs a little bit more resources than Twist did. But that being said, if they can get the system to work and just kind of set up Frozen a little bit more and let Rops be a bit more of a supportive player, I think this roster will be a lot better than it is currently. I do think they've just looked, you know, they haven't looked as good as they should considering the pieces that they have. And I think that's just they need to kind of readjust their system a little bit. But yeah, still, I mean, Kerrigan's, you know, like a top 2 IGL of all time. They still have looked really great. They had a pretty solid run at the RMR. So I think they're pretty safe lock to put through here. And for this last team, like I said, I think 3D Max, Heroic are both very good picks here. I do think that like there's a lot of matchups where Mongols or 3D Max, or a lot of ways the bracket can go where Mongols and 3D Max can end up playing each other in like one of these matchups here. So I think it's potentially a little silly to put both of those teams through just because there's a pretty good chance that one of them would end up eliminating the other. I guess in that way you could maybe guarantee yourself a safe pick by putting both of them. I think Liquid you could pick here, but I'm going to get a little crazy, get a little fun with it. I'm going to put Wildcard to go through. I just feel like every major we have one of those teams that no one really expects to get to playoffs, and then they do. Stanislaw is obviously a very tenured IGL. And I don't know, I think at the start of the opening stage, definitely some of these younger players on the team like Fuzi and Jaba just looked a little unsure of themselves. They were making bad decisions. But they just have looked a lot more solid as the event has gone on. They seem a lot more comfortable like making plays. And I think Stan is just such a good IGL and just has done a lot of really good preparation. And I think against these very kind of systematic and more consistent teams, Stan is going to be able to do a lot of really, really good prep. And yeah, as long as these younger players stay comfortable and stay confident in the moves that they're making, I really do think this team can make it to playoffs. It is a little bit of a crazy pick here. I think, like I said, Heroic, 3D Max, Liquid is probably a more solid and safe pick to put there. But yeah, I believe in Wildcard. I believe in Stanislaw. So we're going to lock it in. Yeah, we're locking it in. I feel pretty good about these picks. Coming into like looking at the bracket for this stage, it was very, very daunting. And I mean, these 3-0 picks are really, really hard. Like I think Navi Vitality are the most likely, but just by a hair, and it's very possible that one of them could get upset in one of these matches and end up 3-1 or 3-2, which would kind of ruin everything for me. But yeah, I don't know. We're locking it in. Diamond Coin Dream is still alive. And yeah, I'll see you guys after the stage ends.